Uh, Hello everyone. I'm Liam Hamilton, and I'm here with.
Hello, I'm Lucas. I have my PhD in propositions A through D, and I did my doctoral work on the fundamental principles of reality, 1 through 5.
As well as.
Berlinci. I have my doctorate work in Proposition D, 1 to 4, and a minor in Fundamental Principles of Reality, 1 to 4 as well.
All right, and we're here to debate how propositions A through D correlate with the nature of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And in the start off, we are going to have both of our debaters start start with their opening arguments. So Lucas can start first.
All right. So, my goal here is simple. I'm an intellectual man. I'm a big fan of being intellectually consistent. First, I want to get some things out of the way. Me and my debater, Berlucci, who so kindly agreed to do this debate with me, we both agree that nihilistic propositionalism is baloney. That goes for E, H, and Z. Now that that's out of the way, let's get through some other things. Proposition A only subscribes to principle of reality number 1. We both believe that this is inadequate towards building a worldview. Proposition B subscribes to 1 and 5, which I think there's some validity, but I think ignoring 2, 3, and 4 is very dangerous towards trying to build an adequate worldview. Now, one of the major reasons for this is that Proposition C, and take it from me, I have a PhD, Proposition C actually conforms with the logical scholarship on this when you look into the literature, because it subscribes to all 5 fundamental principles of reality. Yes, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you actually look all the way back, the founding fathers of the literature, which I have my PhD in, and to a degree Bear does as well, he did his doctoral work in Proposition D, which I think is a twisting of what our founding fathers meant to get across. And when you look through the old literature, you will clearly see that if you have, for example, Proposition 1 and 5, you either have both of them or you have none of them. Proposition 2 and 4, same thing. However, with Proposition C, it only subscribes, get this, it only subscribes to the fundamental principles of reality 1, but not 5. This is clearly inadequate towards building a worldview, as you cannot have one without the other, and you need, I repeat, you need 1 and 5 to build an adequate worldview, and Proposition D does not give you that. And that is my opening statement.
All right, very well done, Lucas. Now we will start with Bear's opening statement. Bear.
All right, appreciate that. And I'm glad we can agree that the nihilistic popularizationalism is baloney. It's a hunk of junk. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't work to have a valid worldview. So, um, I obviously have my doctrine work in Proposition D. And as Lucas said, Proposition D subscribes to 1 to 4 fundamental principles of reality. And I'm trying to get across the fact that you don't need the fifth fundamental principles of reality, as it's, you could say, a dinger principle, such as yoga is a dinger class, unneeded. So I'm trying to get across that you can have one without 5, whereas 5, it's not as major or important as all of the other ones. That's my opening statement.
All right, all
Okay.
right. We we'll move to our first section of the debate. Sorry, second section, where each side will be able to give their rebuttals. So I'm going to start with Bear with his rebuttal. Bear, you have the floor.
Thank you, Liam. To rebuttal Lucas's opening statement, he very obviously he makes it abundantly clear that he subscribes to Proposition C as he did his doctrine work in Proposition C. And
Correction,
by
A,
having
A through D. Continue.
hmm?
I
You
did
have
my,
doctrine work in A through D.
yes, all of it.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was just C.
It was.
So
I
through
lied. Continue.
So in his doctrine work, he learned supposedly that you need five if you have one fundamental principles area. So to have the first core belief, you need to have the fifth one because they're one and the same. Because if you don't have one, if you have one and not five, self-contradictory. But if you have one and five, it works. It's a symbiotic relationship between one and five. So what Lucas actually fails to see is that on the theoretical equations of probability, number 28, not 28, sorry, yes, 28. On number 28, it blatantly states that you do not need to have one or the other for one and five. Now, okay, this may be taken differently as some people may understand it. So I may understand it differently as per Lucas or Leah may understand it because also in the text it says you need to have 2 and 4, right? And three is just by itself. You can have 3 whenever you want. And 2 you need 4, 4 you need 2. But 1 and 5 specifically, 1 and 5 it's a different kind of situation as I read it, as I interpreted it at least. And so from what I can understand, you would need if you were to have 5, you would need 1. But the latter option is not the same. So you can have 1 without 5, but you can't have 5 without 1. Does that make sense? And that's my rebuttal.
My turn?
All right, and now Dr. Gray has the floor.
All right, thank you. I find it really strange. Was it the theoretical equation of probability number 28 that you referred to? I find it strange because if you actually look in the literature of that passage, it's very, very clear as far as I'm concerned that it is referring to the fact that 1 and 5 of the fundamental principles of reality and 2 and 4 need to be the same. It seems like a special pleading fallacy to make an exception that 2 and 4 can conform to each other, but for some reason 1 and 5 there's some sort of difference. And it's my observation as I'm looking through your doctoral work that you made, that you actually believe that when it comes to the specifically the fundamental foundations of truth, it says right here, you believe in all from 1 to 27, no, sorry, from 1 to 25, 24 that is, but you exclude the final 3, which I agree with. I think is perfectly fine. Where my problem is right here when it says that on the theoretical equations of probability, you believe in every single one. Now here's the problem. 37 that you believe in is very nihilistic in nature. It actually seems really close to nihilistic propositionalism, specifically in the department of E, proposition E, which we both believe is baloney. The problem is this ideology of theoretical equation of probability number 37 here. If I can just find the page here. Yes, it's clearly in support. As much as I disagree with the nihilistic movement, it's actually in support that if you do see the fundamental principles of reality as valid, then 1 and 5 must check out, as 2 and 4 must check out, and of course 3 is on its own. No one's arguing this. So it seems like you have two contradictory views, and I would just like to point that out. That's my rebut.
All right. If that's the end of your rebuttal, we will now move to do a cross examination where each side will have the opportunity to ask the other side different questions. Now, I am Mr. Dr. Lucas Gray,
Thank
and you have the opportunity to ask Dr. Bertolucci any type of question you think with regard to proposition A or D. So,
Okay. I just want to ask a quick question here. So, this I just want this to make sense in my head. Why is it that, given the fact that you subscribe to theoretical equation of probability number 37, why is it that you can reconcile that reality with the fact that you somehow believe that 1 and 5, that you can have one or the other instead of all in or all out? How do you justify that?
Sorry, repeat that last part again one more time, please.
So it seems that your belief is that 2 and 4, you need to have both of them or none. But for some reason, with 1 and 5, you can have one and not the other. This seems to be in contradiction with theoretical equation of probability, number 37, and does not check out with fundamental foundations of truth that you subscribe to, 1 through 24. How do you reconcile that?
Okay, so you're saying that since 2 and 4 have a symbiotic relationship, 1 and 5 should?
I'm asking how you reconcile that with your statements on theoretical equations of probability, number 37,
Okay.
in comparison with fundamental foundations of truth, 1 through 24.
Okay, so essentially, you're saying why 1 and 5 don't have a symbiotic relationship, but 2 and 4 do?
Yes, in relation
Okay.
to your other views, yes.
Yeah. So people may consider that. So recently, I was doing some research prior to this debate, actually, and I looked deep. I looked really deep into specifically number 5 of the fundamental principles of reality, and I read that it has some slightly, not over the top, but slightly nihilistic propositionalism. A slight amount. It's not like if you subscribe to 5, you're instantly a nihilistic propositionalistic person. No, it's a slight hint of it. Okay? Furthermore, furthermore, that's why I think, sorry, your question was 1 and 5 don't need to be symbiotic because 5 is borderline, if not tipping its toe into nihilistic propositionalism, whereas 1 is just neutral. It's not nihilistic propositionalistic at all whatsoever. It has nothing to do with it. It actually contradicts the nihilistic propositionalistic ideologies.
So do you have a question for me now? Let's go back and forth.
Okay. So I actually do have a question. So when you say that you took a doctorate degree in proposition A to D, did you not learn that B subscribes to 1 of 5 and A subscribes to 1? Where you also said if you have 1, you need to have 5. So is A also wrong?
Yes, A is also wrong.
So I have another question, follow up. So by you saying A and D are both wrong, would you say B and C are right or wrong?
And after this, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Proposition B, I don't believe is true because I don't believe it builds up a good enough methodology for truth. Proposition C, however, takes into account all fundamental principles of reality, making it a valid methodology defining truth. Now, I have a question for you. So it seems to me that you brought up, if I can just pull up my notes here, it seems to me that you specifically brought up the fact, sorry, I just find it funny that you believe in this nonsense. You specifically brought up the fact that I somehow had nihilistic beliefs, which I find a little strange, even though that I'm actually getting a little heated about this, because you have the nerve to call me out, the man with the PhD who put his life into this, and you call me out for nihilistic attitudes, but you have never reconciled your belief in the theoretical equation of probability number 37 that is nihilistic propaganda.
So, again,
You may want to calm down a bit.
okay, it's fine. So, you're saying that if you subscribe to 5, so I said that 5 is nihilistic, and you're arguing that it's not, and 37 is actually nihilistic. So
Okay, hold on. So you're just saying it's nihilistic. Now tell me how it's nihilistic.
Okay, I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
Okay.
So I said,
Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted some clarification here, if it's okay. So you said, and these are your words. I have it written down. The gist of what you said is that proposition 5, fundamental principle of reality number 5, is somehow, as you put it, nihilistic in a way, slightly. But how? Almost no scholar who's into the literature, who wrote the literature, our founding fathers, agree with you on this.
so if you actually look under the surface, okay, did you know Proposition E subscribes to solely 5? And Would you consider E
What?
nihilistic propositionalistic? Yes or no?
Okay, what
Would you?
literature?
Yes or no?
No, but listen, what literature
Oh,
did you? What
no?
literature? What literature did you find that said that Proposition E subscribes to 5? The whole idea,
Okay.
the whole idea of nihilism is that it subscribes to none of them.
That is baloney.
What?
Why?
Okay.
It's not a proposition
State your
if it doesn't
source.
subscribe to
State
anything.
your source, Bear. State your source.
Okay. Within a subcategory of fundamental foundations of truth called fundamental foundations of faith. That's where I found it.
What?
Clearly,
refer to that?
clearly, if you haven't,
that was written
clearly-
100 years ago by a propagandist.
clearly, if you're thinking that's propaganda, have you
It
have you
is.
read the whole thing?
Have I read? Yes, I've read the whole thing.
You've
Yes,
read the whole thing.
and it was baloney.
How can you think it's propagandist? He
Because it
was,
was
cousins.
written- it was writ-
he was cousins
It
with
was-
the writer
it was
of
written-
Fundamental
it was
Principles of
written-
Reality 1 to 5.
It was written way after our founding fathers established the fundamental principles of reality. For that matter,
He
the principles of
was-
truth, even the
he was-
equations.
He was the third cousin
He's late.
of the writer of the founding father of the Fundamental Principles
Oh,
of
okay,
Reality.
He's the cousin. He's the cousin, and that makes a difference.
He was related.
So hold on. If I'm the cousin, if you figure out that I'm the great ancestor of one of the founding fathers, suddenly everything that I say is true and everything that you say is wrong. Is that true or no?
No, because these were
That's
written
not
much. Listen,
That's not true?
These were written long ago. Third cousin is only how many years? It's only 3 generations. Whereas these were wrote so long ago, like 15 generations potentially. So yes, obviously So, do you understand how blood works? I have my father's blood in my body. Yeah.
Unrelated.
So that
Irrelevant.
cousin would
Irrelevant.
have a ration of the founding father writer of the Fundamental Principles of Reality.
Irrelevant.
That's
You know
not
what?
irrelevant.
I have a question.
It's
for you.
totally interlinked.
How
is it irrelevant?
How do you reconcile? How do you reconcile your belief in the theoretical equation of probability number 37 with your belief that 1 through 5 are not, that you don't need both of them to be true, that you can just have one of them to be true? How do you reconcile that?
So if you read, so initially, I read the theoretical equation of probability 1 through 37 with no context. Then I read it again with context in mind. Okay, without context, obviously people relate it to 5 because they have similar words talking about. They both speak on nihilistic propositionalism, but if you read it within context, you actually miss to see that 36 says all of the theoretical equations of probability have 0% nihilistic propositionalist values. Literally, the passage before the one you're disputing just deletes your argument. What do you have to say about that? So if you actually took the time to read the theoretical equations of probability 1 through 36, you would see that 37 is not at all nihilistic.
I think if you did your research, you would realize that the passage that you're referring to is a forgery.
How is it a forgery, sorry?
It was added 5 years after the original manuscripts, and this is a fact.
Okay, so it was added 5 years after the original manuscript.
Not by the original. Actually, the original writer died. Okay? He was dead.
So you would have to consider the fact that 3 generations, like I argued about the theoretical equations of probability, the fundamental foundations
How
of
about
truth.
you get your words,
I said
straight,
the
Mr.
third,
PhD?
the third cousin of the founding fathers wrote the fundamental foundations of truth. Okay, 3 generations is a lot longer than 5 years. So if anything,
It wasn't
3
written,
generations is less
it wasn't
believable.
written by anyone blood related. It was written by an outsider.
Okay, so
It's irrelevant.
you think that the majority of people, this is why we're talking about it. We're talking about it because these are
Moderator?
grouped together.
Moderator, can you please confirm that that is a forgery? The passage that he's referring to?
From what I've heard, there are like parts of it are forgery and some aren't. Like
Really?
like a person that claimed to have forged it, he claimed that he had it was inspired by working with the founding fathers, but it wasn't written directly by him. But it was definitely inspired.
Thank you.
So okay. So
it's
are
a
you trying
forgery,
to tell
is
me
basically what I got from that.
okay? He said some of the forgery. So
Yeah. What do you think is going to be the ones? The ones that aren't controversial or the ones that are ours? Which ones do you think are
so
going to get forged?
he said
Use your brain.
some of them.
there.
He said some of them are forgeries. So, by him saying some, is that not implying that some of your core beliefs could also be forgery? You have no
we're
evidence.
Specifically
You have
referring
no.
to your. We're specifically referring to
Okay.
your passage that you.
But there's no evidence to prove if it's forged or not. The
That's
same
not true.
way, there's no
That's not true.
evidence to prove if it's
That's
forged
what
or not
someone.
for your
That's what
argument.
someone who's not a scholar would say.
You're
That's
not a
not
scholar,
true.
buddy.
You know nothing about the
My
literature.
grandfather
Hold up.
is the
Irrelevant.
of the Proposition D.
Irrelevant.
He is the lead scholar. How
That
is
has
that
nothing
irrelevant? He
to
wrote
do
my
with what
belief.
we're talking
He
about.
wrote Proposition D.
Hold up, sir.
And I guess you misunderstood him, Bear. I guess you misunderstood him. You
How
missed
did I
your PhD.
misunderstand him? He was a scholar. If I misunderstood him,
Oh, he was a
everyone else
scholar.
that
He was a
follows
scholar.
D
Too bad you're not one.
understands him. Too bad you're not one. My grandfather wrote them, so if I believe them,
Mister, you
if
can
he
have
wrote
Proposition
them,
1,
my
but
rest of my
not
family must believe them. No, yes or no?
You can
Yes or no?
subscribe to the. You can subscribe to the
Yeah,
reality of truth
shut up,
number 1,
Lucas.
but not 5.
If you read the text, it blatantly states that you cannot prove a forgery from a non-forgery piece of text. Yes or no? Explain to me how you can show that a piece of text is a forgery.
So basically, they write it, and then there's copies, and then these copies, all of these copies that are called manuscripts, are copied, and they have the same exact. Even though the different copies have no correlation with each other, they say the same things, and because of this, you can tell that everything that. Let's say there was one in Egypt and one in like America, and you find these manuscripts, and they all say the same thing. Then you know that they're valid. The problem with the passage you're referring to is that it's only in a specific country. I haven't done the scholarship on this in a while. I believe it was in Syria. And in Syria, specifically Syria, there was basically there were these passages that weren't there. There was 3 specifically. And the one that you were referring to was one of those that's only there in Syria, but not in any other country. So that is how we know it's a forgery, whereas everything else checks out.
So, I feel like this is kind of self-contradictory. Let me explain. Let me explain. So, if mine is a forgery, what does the original literature say for number 36 of theoretical equations of probability?
Let me whip out my literature for a second. It's been a while since I did my work on this. Say it again. Theoretical equation of probability number 36.
Yep.
I believe you mean 37, right?
Nope, 36.
30. Oh, we're talking about 36 here. Yeah, 36. It's the part that you're referring to is an addition to 36 that wasn't there. The original 36 talks about the reliability of the fundamental principles of reality, specifically number 2 and 4. And then 37 talks about 1 and 5, but in a strange way that no one really subscribes to.
Moderator, can we get proof on that?
Which one?
Can we get proof on what he just said about 36? Fundamental theoretical equations of probability, sorry?
It's accurate.
Sources. It varies.
It varies. So, okay. Let's drop this point of dispute and pull up another since we can't get a clear answer. It varies. Does that sound okay? Is that fair?
I think we disagree. I think I give you one question, you give me one more question, and then we call it a day, okay?
All right.
I have a question, and I'm going to ask you this question once more, and I want you to answer it honestly. Is theoretical equation 37, in which you subscribe to, is that more nihilistic propositionalism than it is not? Yes or no? Purely yes or no answer. Moderator, if he says anything except for yes or no, call him out for it.
Say the last part again, sorry?
Is theoretical equation of probability number 37 as a doctrine, is it more leaning towards nihilistic propositionalism, or is it not?
Not.
I think our viewers can see that that's baloney. All right, you ask me your question.
Okay.
There.
So, to provide proof of why it's not, like I said, we're just alluding back to the same
You
conversation.
have to ask a question.
Moderator, am I allowed to rebuttal what he said?
No, you have to ask a question. Moderator, he has to ask a
Hey,
question.
moderator said I can.
It's cross-examination.
So, since the moderator said I could, to provide proof about 37 being not nihilistic
Moderator, I
propositionalism.
must object. I specifically said if he says anything other than a yes or no answer, you must call him out for it.
I said no.
So give them like a couple minutes to defend himself.
Okay.
What I thought, buddy. All right. So, like I had said previously, if you read 37 out of context, it sounds very similar to number 5 of the foundation
Out of context.
fundamental principles of reality. If you read it out of context. But if you were to read it within context of the rest of the theoretical equation of probability 1 to 36, you would see, like I said, that 36 says it's 0% nihilistic, and if it comes off as nihilistic, that's not the intention. So, that's to answer your question, and we're not going to go with that further because we just talked about that. So, my question for you, explain to me how 5 is not nihilistic propositionalistic. Explain how it's not.
Because it's in accordance with number 1. So here's the thing. If you have 1, then you have to have 5. If you have 5, then you have to have 1. 1 is unanimously agreed upon in all proposition A through D. It logically follows that because number 1 needs number 5, none of them can be nihilistic because nihilistic propositionalism is purely E, H, and Z, which agrees that none of the propositions are important. They don't matter. It's nihilism. And so because of that, it just logically follows that 5 can't have a hint of nihilism. Other words, how could it be in accordance with fundamental principles of reality 1? It seems a little silly to say that unless you subscribe to some nihilistic doctrines like you do, which are mostly forgeries. And that is the end of the Q&A. So, Liam, what's next?
All right, we're moving on to our closing arguments, and I'm going to let Dr. Gray have the floor. So.
All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a good day. I hope you learned a lot. You know, one scholar in the room at least, and one fraud who subscribes to some really ridiculous ideologies. I think it's clear that because he subscribes to theoretical equation of probability number 37, he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's purely nihilistic, and to use that to say number 5 is somehow nihilistic just shows the lack of scholarship Bear seems to have for this issue. Hey,
do you just insult my entire argument and say I'm nihilistic, buddy? I'm not gonna let it slide. Did you just say that?
Excuse me.
Did you just say that?
Excuse me.
Did you not just say that?
Liam, can you calm him down? This is a closing statement.
I'm sorry.
You can respond in your closing statement, all right?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you better be sorry. Okay? Now, almost no scholars, including our founding fathers, which they actually state in the Fundamental Foundations of Truth 12, which is interesting. It specifically says that 1 and 5 and 2 and 4 both exclusively need each other, which is interesting. 3, of course, doesn't. That's exception to the rule. You'd have to get into the literature, but I think it's very clear that you need 1 and 5. In the fact that you would have to subscribe to something who, as Bear admits, has a hindrance of nihilism, and it is strange. Why would you have a hint, just even a hint of, not hindrance, a hint. Why would you even have a hint of nihilistic beliefs in your doctrine? Because what that implies, as nihilism is it implies a belief that none of the propositions matter, which is strange because 5 correlates directly to 1, and 1 is very clear that everything matters. It is the fundamental building blocks of reality, and it is one of the fundamental principles of reality. Therefore, proposition C, because it includes all of the building blocks of reality and includes 1 through 5, is the best proposition we have and is the one that we must subscribe to. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Barrett.
So, initially, I was going to be very respectful in my closing statement, but after hearing Dr. Lucas Gray's closing statement, I'm going to have to change that. So, what I was going to say initially, before I had heard Lucas's closing statement, Dr. Gray's closing statement, was that we should eventually have a second debate after we find proof if 36 of theoretical equations of probability is forgery or not. Also, including that, we should look at other things that could possibly be a forgery. So, next debate, we'll try to figure out whatever a forgery is prior to it, and then we can debate over that. Additionally, I actually found a flaw in Lucas Gray's closing statement. He actually misquoted the literature as it seems. So, while I was speaking, I had read off my literature as I have right here in this large book, physical copy.
Yes, so
I said, and I quote, the fundamental foundations of truth 1 to 27. Sorry, the theoretical equations of probability 1 to 37. Okay. 28. The 28th theoretical equation of probability specifically talks about 1 and 5. 29 talks about 2 and 4, and 30 talks about 3. Okay. Lucas claimed that the theoretical equation of probability 12 to 14 talks about 1 and 5, 2 and 4, and 3. So blatantly, I feel like if Lucas can consistently misquote, not consistently, if he can misquote something so easily, can we really take what he's saying as truth? I think not.
objection.
So,
That's a genetic
I feel
fallacy.
like if he
Objection.
can't
Objection. This is a
read
fair
his
objection.
literature
Hey, this
sufficiently,
is a fair objection.
and
This is a fair objection. That is a genetic fallacy to say because I made one mistake, my whole view is invalid. That's a fallacy. I'm allowed to call that out. Thank you.
So, by Lucas misquoting it, I feel personally that he didn't thoroughly read the literature. He might have read the literature. Okay, yes, he might not have read it with context or thoroughly. He might have just read it to be able to come to speak today, which would be kind of funny. It would be obvious and it would make sense too for his arguments. But anyway, this is a debate for another day about things being forgeries, yes or no. So that is the end of my closing argument.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Well,
I did not misquote it. I just want to get that out there.
Actually,
But
I
whatever,
will
the debate's over. Debate's over.
put it recorded.
You guys in the audience, you guys can do the research for yourself.
I will post the time you misquoted in the comments.
all right. So, thanks, gentlemen, for being here today,
Mhm.
and
Of course, thank you for having me.
Thanks for
the
having me.
audience has learned something from
I
from
really
this
hope
debate.
I really hope I click the record button.
And yeah,
All right.
have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Yes, have a good night.
Oh, I was.